we'd be leading and be like, let's do Reckless Love. Because, it's a teen-led youth band. And they're like, sure, yeah, Reckless Love.
Hello and welcome to the Sound Doctrine podcast. My name's Caleb.
My name's Keaton.
And my name's Will. We are here to talk about worship and how it influences God's people.
We're going to dive into the lyrics we sing and the church practices we participate in each week and how they influence your congregation.
Whether you're a church leader, congregant, or someone just interested in worship, join us as we encounter Sound Doctrine. Will, we are 5 seconds into making this episode. You've already broken the podcast stand.
You guys will now see, because now we have video. I tried to move the mic, and it just broke. So
Spontaneously combusted.
yeah, that was...
Wow.
Should we now acknowledge that this isn't actually our equipment? This is all
this
borrowed from Indiana Wesleyan.
Thank you, Indiana Wesleyan University, for allowing us to break your equipment.
Amen. We just got back from 3 weeks of not podcasting. This is what happens.
We've turned into amateurs.
Yeah.
Back to amateurs. Yeah. Oh my.
Give us a podcast and we'll get there.
Oh my.
But what's up, guys? We're so excited to be back on campus and get back into the groove. Before break, it was kind of like a trial run. Wouldn't you say, guys?
Yeah, no, for sure. I feel like we were just trying to get our footing, get a groove, but I think we finally found something. Mm-hmm. It's awesome.
Yeah, and I mean, we took at least 2 to 3 weeks off of recording episodes. We recorded ahead of time. And honestly, during that entire break we took, I was just really wanting to get back in the studio with you boys. Honestly, it was just so much fun to record these episodes with you and just sit down and have these conversations. But just kind of to just engage in some just some talk. How was break for you guys?
For me, break was super cool. I started the break in Washington, D.C. At the Museum of the Bible. So I'm a part of the Indiana Wesleyan University Chorale. And so we had the opportunity to go do a concert series with Tasha Layton and Anthony Evans there in D.C. It was the craziest experience I've ever had, but it was so fun. But then also during break, we got to release the first 2 episodes. So that was super exciting just to see how you guys engage with the content, and just to be able to have people listen to what we've talked about, because we recorded that a month ago.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. But then now people are finally able to partake in that conversation with us. So that was really cool just to see our audience, you guys, just to be able to interact with it. I thought it was super cool.
Yeah.
That's awesome. Yeah, Museum of the Bible is an amazing experience. 100%. I love their Old Testament exhibit. It's so fun.
I want to go back.
I've only 100%.
Only been once, and it didn't do justice.
Yeah. Should we take a podcast trip?
We should.
At some point, yeah.
The chorale also did one of the exhibits called All Creation Sings.
Yeah.
And that, honestly, I cried during it. It's just so beautifully put together. So, we need to go back even just to see that exhibit.
Yeah. I haven't seen the new exhibit. I look forward to seeing it.
It's awesome.
Yeah. You're in the credits.
I am in
That's
the credits.
True, yeah. It says Caleb Hines.
It does say Caleb Hines.
Yeah. So when you go there,
look out for him in the Museum of the Bible.
Absolutely. We will tag you in our post.
That's true.
If you take a picture with my credits, we'll tag you.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Keaton, what about you?
Oh, yeah. So I had some really cool experiences over the break. Sadly, I did end up getting sick because whoop-de-doo, why not? 'Tis the season. And in the midst of being a little ill, I had the opportunity to preach a sermon at church, which Caleb happily posted on our social media immediately when I left the pulpit. I got a little notification on my phone. It's you've been tagged in a post.
It definitely was not when you left the pulpit.
Yeah,
I had just sat down from leading worship, got on the live stream, took a screenshot, and uploaded that as soon as I could.
Wow.
So you were on the pulpit.
Wow. I was on. Wow. Wow.
Phone was out while I was
speaking.
Point, and you were already on there.
Yeah.
That's good, though.
But yeah, so that was an amazing experience. It was so much fun, even though I was a little sick.
You did a great job. It was really good.
Thank you. And then I took a little break. I went down to Atlanta, Georgia. I got to, high five Christian Stanfield, hug Louis Giglio down at Passion. Lies. I didn't actually get to do any of those things, but I did in fact go to Passion, and it was an amazing experience. It's one of my favorite conferences I get to go to each year. And just kind of spend time with God in worship and just diving into His Word with some amazing speakers and some amazing musicians. So it was honestly just so amazing. And as I was there, I just couldn't think of anything else but this podcast and the ministries that we get to be a part of. So it's so awesome.
I'm going to throw you on like the heat real quick. Okay.
Oh, no.
We're on a podcast talking about worship.
Oh, yeah.
What? Two things: your favorite point you heard,
Oh.
and your favorite song that you heard.
Ooh.
Okay. So I can't tell you much because the song's not released yet.
That's okay.
But the new song from Passion is fire.
I bet.
So it is great. Also, just doing like All Hail King Jesus in a stadium of like 20,000 people, it just hits different. It's just a little glimpse of heaven every time, and it's just so amazing. However, the best point, I had two actually, but for two different reasons. One was for more of a student ministries perspective, looking at how we can adapt a ministry, and then the other one was more personal and also kind of related to the ministry as well. The point for the ministry was they looked at the book. They looked at Bethany, the city in the Bible, and compared that and contrasted that to Nazareth, being the place in which Nazareth, obviously, Jesus is rejected most of the time. Like people just disbelieve him. You know, he's just the son of a carpenter. He's not the son of God. And then you go to Bethany, and we see a completely different reaction. And specifically looking at Mary, who anoints Jesus' feet with the oil and the perfume, and wipes it with her hair. And basically, it was looking at that as like we as a ministry, and again, this is me talking, need to have that desire of Bethany, the desire to welcome Jesus in, to have that desire to just pour out everything that we have onto the feet of Jesus. And it was just like that heart and that drive. I want to see that in the lives of our students and the lives of our ministry. I want that desire to foster and grow. So that's the goal I'm heading into 2025 with. But personally, one of the best quotes, I forget who it came from now because there's just so many speakers that come at you, was all of us want to wear the cape. Not all of us want to fly.
Yeah.
And I was like, wow.
Yeah.
So I was like, that's great.
That's really good. I love like Passion. I love this idea of a conference meant for that age group. I think it's really, our generation is a very hungry generation. Yeah. And something that's so wide scale is something so attainable for even the most curious of people. One of my favorite memes though of Passion is, fun fact, one of the common hotels in Atlanta. It's the same hotel that's used in the Hunger Games. And there's a meme every year around Passion, and it's I didn't know I was coming to the Reaping. I thought I was going to the Passion because it's the same hotel that's used in so many movies.
I did not know that.
Yeah, it's that like the Wyndham or whatever there. It's massive, but it's the one where like you always see every year where like everybody's singing because like it's the shell, so like it shells around. But yeah, that's a big joke every year that I see. It's like I didn't know I was coming to the Reaping. I just wanted to hear about Jesus.
That's wild.
Yeah.
Oh, wow.
My break, pretty good. I got to go home to upstate New York. Well, really Finger Lakes if we're being technical.
Represent.
Yeah, no one knows where that is though, so I'm always say upstate.
Upstate makes you sound like you come from a lot of money.
I do not. But yeah, New York people would, if you said upstate, would be disgusted with me because not the same place. But yeah, Finger Lakes region, Canandaigua, New York. It was amazing. I love being there. It's so beautiful. I mean, I live like 5 minutes away from one of the biggest Finger Lakes. And so they went last year.
It was a beautiful sight when we went to visit.
Yeah, it's so fun. Got to hear my dad preach, and I love that. My dad's probably one of the best speakers I've heard.
Not biased.
Not biased.
I was gonna say, wow, really getting those brownie points after Christmas.
If you would have asked me like freshman year of college, I would have not said that because I was tired of hearing him. But very fortunate. And then from an audio standpoint, our tech director, we just got our sanctuary professionally tuned.
Ooh.
And man, it was gorgeous. I walked in for youth group, and that was the day before. We do 4 Christmas Eve services, one of them the Thursday before Christmas Eve, to get all those people that are like, I'm busy, I'm going out of town. All those excuses, they don't have one now.
Me.
Get wrecked. But so we do one of those, and so the day before, Elijah's like, you have to hear it though. And he was like, I need you to hear this. And so no one else was in there, and we played, I forget what song but man, it was gorgeous.
That's awesome.
Yeah, so that was really cool. But it was just cool to be around my family and around the church that I spent a latter half of my life in. So,
Yeah.
Love that.
Well, that's amazing. It's good to hear that like we all had just a great break, and honestly, God was moving in our lives, no matter if you were in DC, Atlanta, or just in upstate New York at your dad's church.
Same
like,
thing, all three.
Yeah, all of us.
Yeah.
Yeah, same place, definitely. But no, we were really on the coast though. If you really think about
Yeah,
it, like
it's
we were
true.
on the coast.
East Coast, East Coast, East.
Oh wow, look at that. But yeah, so last week in our episode, we talked about personal versus corporate worship. We kind of got into this hot take and kind of talking a little bit more about it. And again, I don't come from like a platform of worship. Like I don't know how to lead worship. I know very little about how to actually do anything within the worship sphere.
Just with the
Sphere?
trombone. Oh, trombone, right?
Yeah, besides
trombone.
playing a trombone, I know nothing about music. I can bring the word apparently, but outside of that, yeah, there's not much else.
Not much else. That's not an important thing. Let's be aware that that's still worship and a very active part of worship.
Yeah, but looking more again, worship being a lot broader, but now getting a little bit more specific with the specific worship music. And one thing we've experienced within our own ministries, and one thing that we're just kind of experiencing and now entering into a new year, is this idea of how to introduce new worship songs.
Mm-hmm.
So I guess my question, I prepared notes for today. When and how should we introduce worship songs? And then if we have time, why should we? So let's get into that first question. When is it a good time to introduce these worship songs?
I think you have natural breaks
Yeah.
in the year that I think are perfect spots. If there are songs that you, in like your church, feel like they need to add to their canon, their repertoire that they have, there's easy spots to add them at the beginning of the year, the beginning of summer, beginning of the fall.
Fall launch is a big thing.
Fall launch, 100%. And then you also have to include special times like Christmas and Easter.
Yep.
Those are like 5 times where I think that it's a natural progression to add songs. Because obviously there's things in each of those different seasons that your church needs or you feel like your church needs to interact with. And it's a perfect time to add something, right? So a good example is this year at the church we're working at, where it's the year of freedom for us. It's like our motto. And so when we've been looking at songs, we've been looking at, okay, what are songs that we can add that really drive home this theme of freedom? And so like perfect time to add songs about freedom to our church's canon, because that's what we're trying to prepare the church for. So like throughout the different seasons, I think that's just a natural time to add new songs.
Yeah, that's really good. I mean, that's obviously the most like easy adaptable answer to say that. And amazing. Like, of course you're going to put new Christmas songs at Christmas because you're not playing those. I mean, sometimes some of them you play around all year, but most of them you're not playing all year. So you're like, wow, this one came out last year. Let's do it this year. You know, Easter, I mean, any following the Christian calendar, anything following that, you can obviously use that to introduce new songs. I thought about this. This is a shower thought. I'm going to be honest. Last night and this morning, I was thinking, and I was like, context and congregation. Those sound like the same thing, and they are technically. But congregation meaning I was thinking of what does your demographic of the congregation look like? That's going to kind of play into how you're introducing new songs, especially, you know, if you're trying to invite new people, if, you know, you're trying to grow your congregation's older, and you're trying to bring in whoever, that's going to impact the music that you are wanting to do.
Yep.
And then context, the context of the community. Your community is going to drive the music that you are playing. You know, when we talked about this even, I think, in personal versus corporate about this idea, but like, you know, if you are in an area that's diverse, that music's probably going to look a little bit different than if you're in a population that's 95% white. And there's nothing wrong with that, but that's going to drive introducing the songs that you want. And maybe you are in a diverse community and you want that to be your church and you're not really playing to that, then that's going to be a time that you're going to then introduce new songs and new things. And, I think it's important, though, in all of this, you need to do it gradually. Don't just, change your entire canon in a week and then no one knows anything. And you can definitely play it
the canon, the reason we have a canon, the reason that churches have like a list of songs that they use, it serves two purposes. One, like what you were just talking about in terms of what does the congregation know, right? When people come into the church, there needs to be some sense of familiarity, right? Not that there needs to also be things that challenge us and maybe push us outside of our comfort zones, but there needs to be songs that people can listen to and sing along with, for them to be able to like actually sing and worship together as a community. If we're just playing new songs every week, that's really more of a performance where the band is playing and the people are watching. But when we're playing songs that the congregation is able to learn and is able to really internalize, then they're able to participate, right? And so that again goes back to like gradual adding things. When people listen to a song over time, that's something they're going to be internalized. So it provides a sense of familiarity. It also sets the boundaries, right? You're coming into whatever season that your church is ready for, and you're saying, these are the songs that we're going to sing, right? So then you're setting boundaries not only for yourself, right? What can I do with the songs that I have? But then also from like a worship leader standpoint, all of my volunteers are able to look at the canon and be like, okay, we're going to play any of these 50 songs, right? And so we're not, from a musician standpoint, and all my volunteers, we're not throwing new songs at them every week that they need to learn new parts. They're able to be like, okay, these are the 50 songs we're going to play for the next year or so. Not that we won't add stuff in between there, but this is generally the list. And so it provides a sense of stability and the boundaries for that team as well.
Well, and Keaton, you can even relate to this. Like, I bet the years that you've gone to Passion, there's still music that's probably played every year.
Oh, 100%.
And it's that reason of familiarity that like everybody can unite on that. And now there's definitely a ton of new music that's for sure played at Passion as well, but it's a lot easier to have everyone unite and feel a sense of unity as the church when they all know the words.
Yeah, and I think the term new depends.
Well, yeah.
Because like we're not referring to just like the songs that are coming out in like 2024, 2025. Like a new worship song can be something you've never sung in the church before.
Yeah.
And going back to that Passion bit, like the reality is like they sing a lot of their old songs and some of those songs are new to me.
Yeah.
Like I've never heard them before. And to me, those are still new songs, even though they're not, newly published.
Yeah.
So I think that kind of like that new concept, like it's not just a term that means you got to be playing the hottest and newest songs that just came out from Brandon Lake in your church, but like you can still go back to a song that maybe you've never sung in your church before, but is really good and really solid.
Yeah, that's a great point. Like new doesn't have to mean a song that released last week. New is just something that hasn't been played in your setting.
Well, from a ministry perspective too, like we can't assume that everybody in the congregation knows these old songs. Right? Like we can't go back and sing like songs from like the early 2000s that like I grew up on. I'm like, how does not everybody know this song? This is like all we sang, right?
Well, we even joke with Keaton sometimes with that because Keaton wasn't grew up in the church like we.
No, I didn't grow up in the church.
So
I didn't grow up with VeggieTales.
Bible man.
Bible, what a blast. But like we can't expect people to know those songs. And so even though they're not new songs, we can't expect people to know the songs of the past. We also can't expect people to like be able to we can't expect people to listen to the radio and know all the songs. Right? We can't come in one week and be like, hey, we're going to do praise. And that's it. Like we can't just be like, this is what we're doing, because we can't expect them to know that. Right? We have to gradually bring these people into the songs we're going to sing and provide a space for them to interact with the song whatever way they need to, especially those first few times. But we can't expect them to know the songs of the past and know the songs of right now. We need to be the people to usher in the people to be able to know the songs and be able to interact with them the best they can.
Totally.
Yeah, and also like just the way like culture has shifted and just like this new generation, very little of us are still listening to the radio.
Right.
We're listening to more Spotify, like anywhere like Apple Music, somewhere where like it's a music platform. And most of those songs, we didn't just spontaneously come across. They were given to us.
Yeah, that's another thing. Like, you have to find the music now.
Yeah.
Now, I mean, every streaming platform for music has like the top hits of Christian, but most people aren't just listening to that. So, like, new songs you're actively finding.
Yep.
Because you're not. It's not just like handed to you when you're like, unless you're listening to the radio. Like, you have to actively seek to find them.
Yep.
Yeah. So, also talking about like when is it a time to like bring in new worship songs? Does engagement matter, like in deciding that aspect? Like when you see engagement go down, is maybe bringing in newer songs a part of that, or is it you can't really be real sure about that?
I think part of that comes to, I don't think introducing the song should be our first reaction.
No.
Okay.
I think that our first reaction should be what is it that I'm doing that can maybe hinder that engagement, right? Is with the worship leader's job is to direct people to Jesus.
Yep.
But if they're not engaging with that worship moment through music, the first thing we have to address is like, am I the problem, right? If my job is to bring people to Jesus, am I the hindrance from bringing people to Jesus? And what is it that I need to do, or what is it that the team needs to do?
Yeah, because even if you're like, you can say that like new songs are going to help, but if you're not leading worship to the best of the capability you can, a new song's not going to fix that.
Right.
I think that's a really good point. You could be doing a song, 40 years old, and you may be like, oh, well, I want to do the new music, but if you're not doing it to the best that you're able to, that might not be the problem.
Yep. Another good test is what is engaging to your congregation. So if, let's say you're a congregation that's doing all new songs. We're not trying to pick on new songs, but new songs just don't have as much familiarity as some other songs. And so if your congregation isn't engaging with these newer songs, but then you bring a hymn and they are like so deeply engaged with the hymn and they're singing like to the top of their lungs, then maybe the new stuff isn't what's best for your congregation.
Yeah.
Right? New songs are not the solution. New problems are an avenue that you can go, and it's a great avenue. Especially if you're trying to reach new people or the younger generation or multi-generational type of demographics. But if that's not your church and they're just latched onto the hymns and that's what they engage with, even if they're a multicultural or multi-generational church and they just are invested in the hymns, then stay there, right? The hymns still have plenty of good stuff to talk about. It's not that the new songs have better theology.
Yeah, who are you to judge on the music that the congregation is speaking to?
Exactly. So that's a good test, is what is your congregation engaging with? And then go there.
And I think that transitions now kind of into the how we introduce new worship songs. And I think that goes with the first statement is know your context.
Yeah.
Like we have to know our context in which we're releasing these new songs to.
Context and congregation drive what you are doing with your music. I've been in 3 different congregations growing up, and just this, like, you think as you are sitting in a service, you're like, wow, either this new song is really good, or we introduced this, or like, or maybe it's like, man, we're still doing hymns, but there's so much more behind just like, they didn't do the new songs that released this year. Like, there's a lot behind making those decisions, and it has to fit, like, what all that was Caleb was saying, it has to fit into the mission that you were driving for as a church. I've in one of the churches that like my dad was a pastor at, like they kind of had to say that, at one point he was like, we can only do this amount of, maybe of our older canon for a little bit, because they wanted to drive in younger families. And they found that how to do that was just a little bit of these newer songs. Now, that didn't have to be like the song that released last week, but just a little bit newer that they were maybe more familiar with. Because some of the unchurched, they're hearing this newer music in the context that we were in, and not as much as that early 2000s. And so you have to just look at the mission of the church and your goal that you're doing as a church.
Yeah, that's good. That's good.
Yeah. So how else can we introduce these worship songs besides just beyond knowing your context? How do we practically actually do this?
Well, I mean, we started with this idea of a canon.
Yeah.
So that's going to drive everything.
100%.
In the best way possible. A canon is helped so much because the church knows what to expect. You said the volunteers know what to expect. but that's very helpful when how you do it too.
Mm-hmm.
Because if you say your canon is however big, 50 songs, and you want to put in a new worship song, then you can think about, well, what's a song that maybe isn't connecting?
Yeah.
We haven't done this song in 4 months. Let's replace that maybe with a song that is new to the congregation that we believe will help them engage with the church on Sunday.
Yeah, or even just like, what is something that is missing?
Yeah.
Like, if we have
Yeah,
a lot
that's
of
a good one,
songs in
too.
our canon that are about love, but we don't have any songs about like
Peace.
peace
Yeah.
or hardship,
Yeah.
and all like any fill in any
Yeah, any
theme.
blank, yeah.
That's a great time to be like, man, like especially in a time of like, let's say that we need a song for peace because our community is going through like some turmoil.
Yeah.
Like that's a perfect time to add a new song because it fills in the gap of something that your canon doesn't have, right? A canon can't cover all of who God is, and it can't cover every style and genre and language, right?
It's
It
not
can't.
going to. Your canon would have to be every worship song ever.
Exactly.
If you were, yeah,
And then some.
Yeah, and still won't cover that.
Right. So, but we have to figure out what is our canon missing as well.
Yep.
But also, what do we need to replace? Planning Center has in their services app, you can see the last time you've played those songs. So once every semester, we sit down as a pastoral team and we say, okay, we haven't done that song in 3 years.
It's like,
So
why?
Perfect to take that one
Yeah.
off. No problem.
Yeah.
But then it's also a time to be like, man, what are we missing? What are we missing? So yeah.
Yeah, well, even when we went back to the perfect time to introduce, New Year, fall launch, any of these seasons, a great time and a great practical way on how to introduce these new songs, because Planning Center, such a great tool that tells you and gives you information on that. So you don't have to be like, I don't know when is the last time we've done that.
Yeah.
Like, I feel like we did it 3 weeks ago. And it's like, it's been 3 years. And so it helps you even figure that out on a practical standpoint.
Yeah, and it's good to hear. I mean, again, coming kind of from this eyes of someone who doesn't really get to spend a lot of time in the worship area, and specifically with worship pastors and that kind of area in the ministry, it's nice to hear that, like, when we talk about the canon, Caleb, you mentioned that, like, more of like, what does the congregation need to hear, and it adds more meaning to why we sing the songs we sing, because like we're not just there just to sing songs to God.
Yeah.
We're also there to hear from God, and worship is a way in which God does that. And even through the specific songs we use, the specific lyrics that are sung, is God speaking to our congregation in the context in which they're in the times in which they're currently trying to go through. So in the season of hardship, singing those songs, really relying on God, is just so important.
Yep.
In seasons where it's rough, I love singing Gratitude by Brandon Lake. Like in those low moments, I might not be the happiest person in the world, but just to raise my voice and say, thank you, God, for everything you're doing and continue to do, it's so powerful.
Yep.
So it's good to know that, like, while you guys sit down every semester and kind of look over worship, you re-look at the canon and you constantly are thinking about, what do our people need to hear?
Yeah.
What is the thing that God wants to speak to them through the songs we sing? So that's really encouraging to hear.
Yeah.
We hope that you guys are enjoying this episode, and we encourage you guys to follow us on our social media platforms at Sound Doctrine Podcast, where you can see the behind the scenes of our episodes. You can see clips from the episodes that are coming out and just new content that is coming. So follow us at Sound Doctrine Podcast on social media platforms.
Make sure to like our podcast as well. If you are enjoying what you're hearing, comment on the post. Tell us what you found really exciting, what you liked about our podcast. Make sure you rate our podcast. Ratings just really help drive that. And then share your podcast with your worship leader, with your worship friends, with your pastor, whoever. Share it with your mother.
Share with everyone.
Thank you again for listening. Here's the episode.
And then when we introduce new songs, you were trying to get us on the how.
Yeah.
There's some songs that we may do on a Sunday at different points that may not be part of our canon. And at least how we currently have it set up, there's 2 moments that we can throw new stuff in to see how the congregation interacts with it before we say this is part of our canon. We don't do that often, but it allows us a place to do that. So one of them is the commitment moment.
Yep.
So especially with like slower songs or songs based on commitment, or remind us about an attribute of God. Those are that commitment time during the sermon where the pastor will be like, "Hey, this is where we're going, but this moment now that we've heard from God, this is how we're going to interact with God."
Altar call, anything.
Exactly. Perfect time to maybe try out a chorus of a song if it fits perfectly, right?
Yeah.
Don't try and force things. That's another thing too, is you can't force these things.
Yeah. Please do not.
No.
Just like, I really like gratitude, but our church doesn't seem to love it, but we're going to do it every week until they love it.
Yeah, you can't do that.
Yeah.
You can't force it. And so that's a great time though, is to figure out like what song fits best for this moment.
Yeah.
Another time too, and this also works with faster songs, we have a closing song. So we'll finish the message, we'll take the offering, and then right before everybody leaves, we'll do like a final last song.
Celebration.
Exactly, a celebration. And so maybe we'll throw in a song that we haven't done before there, just to see like, hey, does the congregation like this song? Are they willing at least to clap to it at the end?
Yeah.
Something like that. Like, are they willing to interact with it just a little bit? Gauging engagement
Yes.
is difficult there, but you'll be able to over time be like, okay, this is a song that they like. This is a song that they don't really engage with. Those types of things. So I think those are two spots, at least in the way that we currently work our worship services, to be able to like maybe try new stuff.
And another one that like I think about is if the pastor calls for it.
Yeah.
You know, sometimes a pastor is preparing a message and they're like, can we do this song? I know we've never done this song before, but it is perfectly relaying what I am trying to
100%.
display in this message. And as a worship pastor, you're like, yeah, sure, you know.
Yep.
Unless, you know, maybe they have something like, what about this one? But, you know, there's still the idea of like, sometimes they have an idea and you're like, you know, back to what we said, we don't have a song that maybe displays this or, you know, whatever. And so you tried out that song for that week and maybe the congregation loves it. And so you're like, let's add that to the canon.
Yep. 100%.
Yeah, and I think something we have to keep in mind when adding new worship songs, and again, like I know very little about how to do this, but I know how to lead change. And the reality is, nobody likes change.
Oh, for sure.
Nobody in the
What do you
church
mean?
likes change.
I thought everybody loved change.
I thought that was the saying.
And I will say that includes me. Like I am a man of structure. I love it when things don't change.
Keaton's an old man at heart.
I am very much an old man at heart. But sometimes change is necessary, and that may include adding new worship songs for various reasons. So what was a time in your guys' life, I know, Caleb, you can speak more into this, that change was hard, or maybe you got some backlash from adding a new worship
where
song?
You're going with this.
He structured this question to call out Caleb.
No, this is a direct call out.
This is exactly.
It's okay, I have one too. If you...
No, I want to go. He called me out.
No, okay, that's fair. Yeah.
Dude, we can
I
still
can
add
soft it after. Yeah.
So I'm in charge of our youth worship at the church we work at, and we wanted to add a new song. Me and the worship pastor for the church.
Really, Caleb?
No.
I'm just kidding.
No, it was. We were like, man, this song would be really cool, and we wanted to try it out with our youth students. It's "Goodbye Yesterday" by Elevation Rhythm.
It is very popular with the youth.
The kids love it.
Okay, the kids do love it. Maybe just maybe not in our context, but in a wide scale, it is a very played song. From the ages
I will
of
agree. It's a very fun song.
Yes.
So, but it's a little bit different than what we normally do in youth group. But the entire idea behind our youth worship team is that what we're doing on the youth group stage would reflect what we do on the sanctuary stage. So it's all cohesive. We're using the same volunteers. We're still using the youth space to raise up leaders for the main service, but we're trying to make everything just so cohesive between the youth worship and our main service worship.
You don't want to play completely different songs.
Exactly. So they have the youth still has their own canon, but it's a smaller version of what we're doing.
And it reflects what the canon of a Sunday.
Absolutely. So we wanted to add a new song that was a little bit more hype. And so we tried it out the first week.
Very hype. It's
very hype.
It's the definition of worship and hype together.
Yeah, fusion. Worship fusion is what it is.
Yeah, it is that, yeah.
And so we tried it out, and I was scheduling it, every other week, basically.
Was it every other week or was it
I
every
think
week? It felt
every
like
week.
every week.
It was every week, and then a little break, and then every other week.
So, but the idea was we need to make this familiar because this is like we were adding 2, maybe 3 new songs to the canon.
Yeah.
The canon's only like 15 songs.
Yeah, it's a lot smaller because
It's
we
way smaller.
only meet once a week.
once a week, and yeah, it was,
only for brief semesters.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So we're just trying to make sure that like those songs became really familiar just through repetition. And there was a certain youth leader, Keaton, that
You can call me out. I called you out.
I'll call you out.
Keaton's Keaton does not like change.
Keaton
Let's
hates
preface-
change.
let's-
I don't hate change. I see the need for change. I just don't like change,
Keaton. Oh, here's the thing. This will help
especially when it's not communicated.
display Keaton's mind. Keaton, like what changed, I would say, right? A very active part of your relationship with the church was youth group.
Oh, 100%.
But youth group for us is not what youth group was. What it is now.
Yeah.
Very
way
different.
different.
Me and Keaton, as we're leading a youth group, have said that, especially like games and everything. We're like, man, these are like common knowledge, or these are things that
We did all the time.
yeah, all the time, and we'll do them, and they're like, "What is this? This is stupid." And we're like, "Ah."
Like, I still play this game. Thank you very
Not
much.
that old.
yeah. We are in our early 20s.
It's
Things
insane.
change so fast in the world.
But anyway, Keaton did not. He wasn't a big fan of the song.
He felt
And
that the youth were not.
yes, he didn't feel like they were engaging with it.
It was less of a Keaton thing.
Yeah,
It was
Yeah.
more of what he was.
looking
so-
at.
Yeah,
the
yeah,
engagement.
yeah.
It
Well-
was afraid of that.
Yeah, and one thing I do and that's something I do as we worship, is I like to look around the room.
Yeah.
Yeah,
That's
for sure.
I feel like what I need to do as a pastor is make sure the people are actually engaging in worship.
Yeah.
And not saying that they always have to be engaging in worship, because that's not a mindset to have, but like when introducing new songs specifically, looking around and being like, okay, how are they reacting to it?
Yeah.
And I knew the first week it wasn't going to fly.
Yeah, no way.
It never will. It never will. Unless, like, I mean, there's certain songs that maybe, like, you can.
Yeah.
Like, okay, we talked about Praise. Praise is one that probably, like, if we would have played new at youth, they probably would have, like, yeah! But some songs are just not going to happen.
Yeah, no way.
Yeah.
Yeah, and like over the 3 weeks that we played it nonstop repetitively over and over again, I'm exaggerating.
Over and over. I'm just kidding.
I'm
It's the
exaggerating.
only thing we did at youth group.
Yeah.
Actually.
Yeah, that's the
We
only
didn't
song.
preach. It was just
Goodbye
goodbye
yesterday.
yesterday.
But no, over the course of the weeks, I just kind of kept looking at the students' faces, and they still looked really confused. And I was like, this doesn't seem right. Like, I don't know if this is the direction we need to go with this song.
Sure.
I was like, not saying we don't need hype songs, because I mean, our kids love "I Thank God," and that's hype to a degree.
Not as hype.
Not as hype as "Goodbye
yeah,
Yesterday."
yeah.
"Goodbye Yesterday" is its like own tier.
Yeah.
because it's just
oh,
so fast.
Goodbye Yesterday is like almost Christian rap. It's not. It's getting there.
Oh,
It's,
gosh.
It is like Forrest Frank and Goodbye Yesterday. Same thing.
Gosh.
You can't. Elevation Rhythm actually works with Forrest
Yeah.
Frank.
No, I love them.
No, one thing I would say, and as we were going through this, because I was there as well, I was like the middleman, and like there was like two sides. It was like I had like a devil and an angel on my shoulder, but they were both angels.
I was gonna say, which one are you gonna compare to the devil here, buddy?
Yeah, no one's the devil, but like I was hearing both things. It was like, yeah. But I mean, just like if you're in a congregation where you stop playing hymns, and 90% of the congregation, not 90, but like you have those like 4 old people. That's what I meant to say. That are like, I only can praise God with hymns. You're not gonna just do hymns because those 4 old people. So they may not reply to it and engage in it right away, but as we've gotten now to the point, because now we're doing it on Sundays, we're now
Yep.
doing it. They know it now, and they,
Yeah.
they're like even if it may not be the most like their favorite song, it's still good for us to do songs that because in life they don't get to pick the worship.
Yep.
And I like for a lot, they can't leave the church, like because they don't have that control in the best way possible. And so like, I don't want them thinking that like you should like not come to youth group because maybe you don't like Goodbye Yesterday. And so I think it's good sometimes to maybe play a song that maybe not be their favorite, but everything there is theological
Yep.
and displaying the name of God. It's just different. and maybe
Yeah.
not what they're used to.
Yeah, and after a few weeks, I did go up to Caleb immediately after hearing the songs, and I did have a conversation of, hey, maybe we shouldn't play the song.
And then you
Caleb,
did.
yeah. The funny thing about how Caleb responded was he was like, "Okay, I'll think about it,"
Yep.
and then he scheduled it for 3 more weeks.
Yep,
Like
it was good.
the man saw right through me, and he's like, "We're gonna get Keaton," and
It definitely wasn't a get
Gotcha.
Keaton.
Gotcha.
When we introduced the song, this is something that we haven't done before, and that was introduce the song in youth group to then do in the sanctuary.
Yep.
Because what we normally do is introduce things in the sanctuary
And then do it in youth group.
transfer them to youth group. So these are most of the songs, even if they're new to the youth group, aren't new to the youth kids.
Yep.
Because this is songs that they're singing. The other thing with youth, and I think this is probably across the board, probably not just with our kids, but it's hard to know how they're engaging.
So
Because-
true, especially with our context.
Yeah.
It's a little bit harder sometimes to. Keaton's looking at us like we're stray cats. You can't deny this, that there are times that, like, especially even for us preaching, that
Yeah.
we've been like, nah, I don't think they're engaging. And then we'll go as small group leaders in small group, and they'll say something, the most profound thing we've heard all week.
Right.
And legit, though. That
no, it's true. That's true.
Yeah.
So I think that it's hard to know how they engage with those songs. But just this morning we played Goodbye yesterday, and I felt like the congregation was in it. I felt like
Yeah.
they were
For 6 o'clock in the morning,
for
we
6
were
o'clock
in it.
in the morning. They were in 100%. So I think looking back, it was the right move to keep going with it, because I feel like now they're at a point where they internalize it, they know it, and they might enjoy the song.
Mhm.
Yeah.
But again, worship music is not about enjoyment, but it's about bringing glory to God
Yeah.
first.
Yeah.
Not that there can't be enjoyment with it. And I would say that some of them do enjoy it.
Yeah.
Maybe not all of them, but who enjoys every worship song that we sing?
Yeah.
I play every week, and I don't enjoy playing every worship song we have in our canon.
Yeah. I
But
hope.
it's all about worshiping God through what we do.
Yeah. Okay, I have one more example
I love it.
before we close. Man, okay, so this is a funny one. When I was in youth and helped leading, my favorite example of introducing songs and how it plays out is when you go to summer camp and there's the new song that you play at summer camp.
Yes.
And then my youth group, we don't now, but we used to do summer ministry throughout the whole summer. And so 1 year, not even 1 year, every year what would happen is the year, so a good example, the year Reckless Love came out. Then we played Reckless Love, and that was one of the 3 songs we did every single week. And then by the end of the summer, you're like, let's never play Reckless Love ever again.
Yeah.
So to a point, which Caleb did a great job of he played it for 3 weeks, and then it was every other week. That's really good, because on the other extreme, even if they love the song, and if you play it every week, they will not love the song anymore. But I thought that always just a fun example of me, we'd be leading and be like, let's do Reckless Love, because it's a teen-led youth band, and they're like, sure, yeah, Reckless Love, or I don't know, any summer camp song that this is new, I love it, I felt God at camp. And I mean, that's true, and it's awesome because, the kids that went to camp experience it, but, you don't want to wear it out. You don't want to do gratitude. You don't want to do, even if it's a song from the early 2000s, if you do it every week, the congregation will get sick of it.
Right.
So,
Yeah, and I think we've had a great conversation. I love everything you guys have said about kind of just when we do it, why we do it, and how we do it. Just to kind of end this plane on this, because I always want to try to find a way to back it up with scripture.
Yeah.
And again, introducing new worship songs is not in scripture. It's not this is the day you should introduce new worship songs by God.
in 1 Peter, it says exactly.
Yeah. There's nothing there.
That doesn't happen.
However, the Psalms, on multiple occasions, the Psalms always say, "Oh, sing to the Lord a new song,
Yep.
for He has done marvelous things." That's Psalm 98. And the reality is, God is still working. He's doing new things in this world, which require us to sing new songs
Yeah.
Yep.
about His glory and about His praise. Because the reality is, God's still doing work. Imagine if the Israelites would have sang only songs containing content to the Red Sea parting.
Yeah.
And completely forgot everything else God did through the Exodus, through the exile, moving on into the New Testament. if we were still singing about the Red Sea splitting, we're missing a large chunk of what God has done in the world and what he's continuing to do in our world.
Yep.
So by introducing new worship songs, and why we do it is because God is still working in our world
Yep.
and in our life. He's still telling us about things in our lives that we're going through now, not just things we did 20 years ago, but things we're actively experiencing in this day and age. So I think that's just, to land this plane, like that's why we introduce new worship songs, is because our God is still working and he's still doing new things, and he's calling us to sing and praise his name in that new way.
Yeah.
So this has been a great conversation, boys. I've loved having this conversation. Thanks for answering some of my questions, because again, I don't know how to do this.
Yeah.
This is all new for me. So thank you guys for this engaging conversation.
It was good.
Yeah. We'll keep singing.
Keep seeking.
And let sound doctrine lead the way.
See you, boys.
See ya.
See ya.
Our show is brought to you by the Lantern Podcast Network through Wesley Seminary at Indiana Wesleyan University.
Thank you, Indiana Wesleyan University, for allowing us to use your podcast studio.
For more Christian content, check out the Lantern Podcast Network. And as always, keep singing.
Keep seeking.
And let sound doctrine lead the way.